Thank you so much for inviting me to Provoke 15, and I really hope I don't ramble horribly, so please forgive me if I do. So why am I here today? So I'm chair of something called Nottingham Good Food Partnership, and 2 years ago myself and Helen Ross, who used to work at the City Council, and we've been friends for years, decided that really what we wanted to do, was to really unify the amazing range of sustainable food activity. Here we are surrounded by just some of it, and to create a real sense of direction in the city that really had been lacking. So the Sustainable Food Cities Network, I don't know if anybody of you have heard of it. Well, it's more of a movement than a network now. Nottingham is number 53 and there are 54. We became members 7 weeks ago. Yes. And that sounds, oh you joined a network. It took 2 years. You have to produce a year's worth of minutes. You have to have gathered together 6 key theme groups. You have to assemble a board of people who are representative of the broad span of sustainability and food in the city. And as we know, that takes more than 5 minutes. But we do have an amazing collection of organisations and people who are really, really passionate about moving forward the picture of sustainable food in Nottingham. Now I could take 3 days really to talk about the whole picture, but really I'd like to focus on what our overarching aim is. So alongside all the other sustainable food cities, there are 6 key themes that we all work to. We adapt them because it's all about place and localisation, but we follow these 6 key themes. So 1 is about transforming catering and procurement. Just to give you an indication, 3 of our members are Nottingham University, Trent University, I should say it right, University of Nottingham, Trent University and the City Council. And we asked just those 3 organisations to tell us, not individually but the total, what their catering budget was. 17 million quid. Just for those 3 organisations. We're still waiting for figures from the NHS. If anybody knows in the audience, please do tell me. But we would think 17 million, that's a lot of dough, that is. And then we asked them what percentage of it was actually locally procured. And as you can imagine, it didn't really register very high. So we then started the discussion of, well, how could we increase that? So we've set up this group and they're beavering away, looking at how we can do that. But it's very complex and it's not something I can go into today, but it would create jobs. The second one is looking at supply chain. So, you know, where does our food come from? What's the ecological impact? Well, just to tell you that way back in 2005, the Stockholm Economic Institute, and some of you may remember this report, did a report looking at the whole ecological pie of Nottingham and Nottinghamshire. And very interestingly, food came out at 27% of the total pie. That's a lot, that's a third. So why was it so enormous? Well, let's take into account things like transport. 60% of all freight on the roads is moving food and beverage around from logistics point to logistics point, comes in, goes out, and then of course we have food waste that will go to a variety of places. And unfortunately, because we are not producing sufficient, then those food miles are going to keep going until we achieve a paradigm shift. So that's kind of that side of things. Now our overarching concern in Nottingham, and if you would like to see the rest of the key themes, just go onto the website because it's not a list. Then what we really wanted to focus on actually was the issue of food poverty. Why is that a problem in Nottingham? Well, interestingly, I don't know if there's anybody here from the City Council. Okay. No, we work in partnership collaboratively. Is that when you type in food poverty into the City Council website, nothing comes up. Apparently we do not have an issue with food poverty in Nottingham, and yet the figures tell us a very different story. So 32% of our households are in poverty. If you're in poverty, that affects everything. You're not going to be having a Waitrose diet and not paying your fuel bill. It's not how it works. And in some areas, like Arboretum, it's over 50%. And we know for a fact that children go to bed hungry, and we know for a fact that parents are skipping meals so their kids can be fed. Just to bear in mind, this is 2018, not 1818. This is not Dickensian, but somehow Nottingham is, like so many other places, a tale of two cities. On one side we have shiny lovely trams, a beautifully repaired station, but a lot of our citizenry can't actually afford to use that transport because they're focusing on putting food on the table. On the other side of that horrendous stat is, alongside of course, food waste and food surplus. And everybody here will be aware that we have supermarkets saying, look at us, we're marvellous, we're donating our surplus food to Fair Share, and Fair Share is then taking it out to community places where people are enjoying low cost meals. But let's just think about that pyramid, that hierarchy, just for a minute. So we have Tesco, Sainsbury's and all the supermarkets, very, very few of whom are in any way transparent. It was calculated that last year Tesco wasted sufficient food to have provided 319 million meals. That's just from Tesco. That's quite a big number. And this is edible food. This is not stuff that you're kind of scraping off the plates and putting in the bin. This is edible food. And when we have that kind of accord of need in the city, it kind of makes you wonder. So we are very blessed in Nottingham, as we know, with an amazing community and a great sense of ownership of the issues in this city. I'm really, really proud of that, and we couldn't have actually put together Nottingham Good Food Partnership had not it been for great hearts and minds. It just couldn't happen. And what's been really interesting in this journey, and I don't want to go on gender stuff at all, but actually 90% of the people who are engaged in doing stuff to do with food poverty happen to be women. Just is. Reflect on agrarian societies, most of the food growing is done by women. And yet when we look at this kind of poverty paradigm across the city again, the nurturers, the carers, are the ones who are kind of underpinning that. Very interesting. So no doubt most of you here will have heard of the wonderful Marcia Smith. So Marcia is the mother of social eating spaces. And Marcia and I have known each other for a very, very long time. And our mantra has always been waste less, grow more, and we can pretty much sort stuff out. So together we've kind of formed this journey about the idea that if we are to address food sovereignty, and that's kind of where we need to go, let's just pop the statistic in. By 2050, the government loves 2050, they do all this road mapping business. By 2050 it's been calculated that the UK needs to increase food production by 70% just to stay where we are. That's not actually, you know, more food, it's to keep pace with increasing population, all the rest of it. That doesn't take into account, unfortunately, shrinkage of the coastline through climate change or massive climate events that affects the import of food. And we import about 52%. It fluctuates up and down, it's quite a lot. And then we have this very, very strange thing where the food that's coming off farms, 40% of it never gets to the shelves. And let's just put that in context. What does that mean? That 40% represents enough food to feed Birmingham and Manchester for an entire year. Let's look at how reliance on a very kind of logistics-based system, when we're not looking at localisation, affects our strength in terms of food. There was a report done looking at Leicester, you know, average city, middle of the country, and there was a study done by the University of Leicester looking at what happened if there was something like a massive fuel embargo. Do you remember the last time we had a fuel embargo? Was there any food in the shops? Food just went. Now there's only enough food in Leicester for every man, woman and child to have a meal, 3 meals for 2 days. So that's 6 meals when there isn't food going in and out. Now if we had a strong local food system, then obviously that pinch would not be the same. Not saying that overnight we can transform this, because we can't, but we have to be aware of where our vulnerabilities lie, and it's really, really key. So things like Fair Share, if there was an embargo, it couldn't come from Leicester and we wouldn't be able to do any social eating in Nottingham. But let's just put that to a side and let's look at the positive stuff, because that's what we're here to talk about. So, social eating spaces. Has anybody been to have a meal at a social eating space in Nottingham? Oh, I recommend you do. I recommend you do. There are now at least 30 eating spaces. They're cropping up all the time, and you can go and have quite often a 3-course meal for £3.50. And what's really important is, and let's take for example Growing Spaces, which is in Sneinton, run by this marvellous man, you all know him, called Steve Doig. We all love him, he's an amazing man. But let me just tell you why he set up this space for feeding vulnerable people. Sadly, several years ago, he had 5 boys, 2 sets of twins and another one. And one day he went into one of his boys' bedrooms to find his child hanging by the neck and was dead. So you can understand this would throw somebody right under the wheels of bus of life. He really kind of wanted to give up. Spiral of descent. And somebody said to him one day, there's a piece of land that needs your attention. Go and grow stuff on it. So that's what he started to do. And then he started to bring in vulnerable young men where he recognised their pain and their need for a safe place, and they started growing food together. Then he heard about Fair Share. I thought, a lot of these people aren't eating because they can't afford it, a lot of them are homeless on the streets, whatever. I will set up a social eating space. So he got in touch with the local vicar, St Stephen's Hall. Can I set up a social eating space? Yes. So he feeds up to 90 people a session. 90 people, 90 people, and he cooks in other places. Another cook I know cooks in 5 different places a week. Let's just point out these people are not paid. Let's just point out they're the ones actually dealing with the food waste. It's not supermarkets, it's not Fair Share, it's unpaid social cooks. So these people are extremely important. So one of the things that Nottingham Good Food Partnership does, and how we kind of have set ourselves as the tone, is that we facilitate, we enable, and then we communicate. And we aim to do that really rapidly. We try to be a rapid response team, even though we've only been going 57 weeks. So a few weeks ago we called together our 50 wonderful partners in a gathering to Growing Spaces, where they had an amazing meal made from surplus, because that's the best way to experience it. And we were all separated out into 6 tables, looking at our 6 key themes, working up campaigns. It was really, really marvellous. I went in the kitchen to see what time's lunch coming out. Steve looked terrible. I said, Steve, what's the matter? And he said, I've got a real problem. My Fair Share licence, they want the money, and they said they're going to close me. And he said, they can't close me, this is my life. And when he said that, we know that's not kind of over-egging the spoon in any way. This is absolutely real. So what we did very rapidly was to speak to somebody that happened to be a Fair Share representative. We showed them the email that he received at 11 o'clock at night, and it was not a nice email. You should never write a business email at 11 o'clock at night, it's never going to be right. And it was not a good tone. And it told him he owed a lot of money, which actually turned out not quite to be the case. Anyway, at that point, as a group, we decided we were going to launch a crowdfunder, and in 5 days we raised 600 quid. Somebody from the City Council, Dave Mellon, bless him, said, tell Steve to get in touch, we've gotten 1,200 quid. Licence paid. But that's the kind of leaders you need in a crisis. You can't wait for a week. So that's kind of what we like to do. So one of the other things that we realised with our social cooks is that these wonderful people were largely working in isolation. So we thought, we need to bring these people together. So we called together an event. Nottingham Catering College very kindly hosted us. Marsha came, and she was hosting a facilitated workshop in the afternoon. And in the morning, we had a lovely woman come in and taught them how to make sauerkraut. Because when you're dealing with waste food, you'll have food at the end which would otherwise be wasted if you didn't preserve it. So we all got stuck and made sauerkraut, which is very good for the biceps if anybody's got a massage that cabbage. You've got to get your anger out into that cabbage. Beautiful probiotic food, oh yes. So, and we made them lunch. You know, we made them lunch. We put our hearts and souls into making beautiful lunch. So consequently they felt nurtured and loved and valued. But really importantly, what we did was to gather together what the strengths and weaknesses, you know, the whole SWOTy thing. But you know, what made things difficult? There was things like, we need equipment. We're working 5 little manky domestic fridges costing us a fortune. Electricity, if the church actually made us pay that, that would be a problem. And we need good, you know, we need decent kit. We need to know that you know, our environmental health stuff's right. You know, there's a whole panoply of things. So we thought, okay, what we'll do is we'll go and talk to big catering organisations and we'll say, you know, when you're getting rid of stuff, can you let us know? Give an example. Went to see the nice people at Capital One yesterday. And I said, you don't have to have any, you haven't got any kit you're chucking out, are you? He said, well, actually, we've got a blaster chiller unit that we need to get rid of. Stephen Doig, he's desperate for one. I rang up and said, do you want a blaster chiller, 16 shelves? Yes! Rip your arm off. So by the end of this week, we will have got him a blaster chiller that will cost him nothing. It's all tested, it's all in running order, but it will make the most amazing difference. Capital One, absolutely transfixed by the Social Cooks Network. They want to get involved, they want to support, they want to host, they want to help make it work. And one of their cooks wants to go and volunteer in a social eating space. The students at Nottingham Catering at Clarendon College, they want to come and volunteer because then they can learn how to run a restaurant on their own. So people are kind of looking at this really, really big, deep, difficult social problem and saying, we can see this works, but we see that there's a weakness there, and the weakness is there's too much reliance on unpaid volunteers. Because what happens when they go ill? Nobody gets fed. How can that be right? So the great thing is that we now have Fair Share, super kitchens, the Eden Project, myself, my colleague Shona, we're all working together to actually see how can we make this solid. How can we, could we possibly pay the cooks? Because that would be the right thing to do, wouldn't it? Why should we expect them to volunteer? They should be paid a decent wage for doing what they do. It's extremely responsible. So even though we've only been in existence for 7 weeks, because we've had this 2-year build, it's looking really good. But of course the most important thing is that we have a whole network of people who do stuff. They do stuff, and that is the secret of the thing. As we all know, there's always money to write a strategy. There is rarely the money to implement it. How often have we, everybody here, had that experience? So we decided we weren't going to spend loads of money on writing strategies. We were going to do an action plan. And it was going to be a dynamic and responsive action plan. And we were going to get our partners, our big shiny partners, like the universities and the City Council and Wayside and various other people, to sign up to what we're doing. So we have just had ratified by our group something new called the Nottingham Good Food Partnership. Really easy to find, www.nottinghamgoodfoodpartnership.co.uk/charter. Please sign it. And those are the 6 simple key themes that we can all relate to. We all waste food occasionally. I mean, I hate wasting food. My husband is Jewish. We have the attitude of waste nothing. So when we occasionally do that, we feel bad. So even very stringent people like us will occasionally do it. But when we look at the figures, the UK is still wasting £7.3 billion worth of food a year. That's quite a lot of money, isn't it? Quite a lot of money. Oh, there's my thing. Oh, I've gone over time. Hell's bells. So, that's why I wasn't going to do that. So, just to kind of sort of rewind a bit there. So, Nottingham Good Food Partnership, bringing together food sustainability in the city, really focusing on how we can address the iniquity of food poverty. Are you not shocked about this 32%? Are you not shocked by kids going to bed hungry and schools having to feed at least 80 children in the morning? I'm a governor at Crabtree Farm Primary School. They feed 80 kids in the morning. That comes out of the school budget because the kids aren't getting fed. And what happens during the holidays, folks? Oh, guess what? They go really hungry. So we are going to be running 4 holiday hunger programmes this year. Just got some funding from Gem FM. Thank you, Gem FM, with your jingles. So we'll be able to run 4 eating spaces, but they can't be full time. They're only 3 days a week, and the need is just way beyond that. Way beyond that. So when we kind of look at the impacts that, not just that it's having on us now, but when universal credit comes in, God knows what it's going to be like then. Nottingham, of course, is officially the poorest city of the country now. Are we all aware of this? Because we have the lowest disposable income. Our disposable income per person as an average is about £10,650 to bring up a child, it costs more than that. For one child to bring it up, it costs more than that income. So these are things we really need to focus on, and I would urge all of you key influencers to shout in the ears of decision makers and say that hunger trumps shiny new trams every single time. Thank you.